What if everything we've been told about autoimmunity is wrong? I'm Elizabeth Yarnell. After awakening partially blind one morning in 1999, a doctor told me my multiple sclerosis would put me in a wheelchair within 10 years. I refused to accept that as the end of the story, so I started investigating. Welcome to the Inflammation Investigator, the podcast that uncovers the inflammation lurking underneath your ailments. Because autoimmune and chronic conditions should not be viewed as death knells when they are actually alarm bells. I'm a traditional naturopath and founder of the Inflammation Academy. And in 2 episodes every week, we dig into what conventional medicine might be missing. If you're living with chronic or unexplained symptoms, this investigation is for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Let's start listening.
Hi, I'm so excited to start introducing myself to you and to tell you all about all of my theories about autoimmunity, multiple sclerosis, and chronic inflammation. I will be reading most of this information, so I just want you to be prepared that I will be looking at my computer screen, but I will still be thinking about you and addressing you directly. So here we go. One evening, 2 weeks before my 30th birthday, I went to sleep as usual and awoke blind in my right eye. Shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Literally overnight, my world changed, and within days, I came to learn that as terrifying as my present had become, this diagnosis foretold an even more dire future ahead. By my 40th birthday, I was told, I would likely need a wheelchair. Perhaps like any average person who hadn't given a thought to their health before being stricken down in their prime, I retreated to my bed to mourn the loss of my dreams and hopes for the future. My doctors presented me with 2 treatment options. 1, regularly inject a toxic pharmaceutical drug and accept the side effects, despite knowing there was less than a 50% chance of affecting the disease progression pace. Or 2, don't take the medicine and be assured of rapidly losing sensory and or motor functions. The doctors strongly advocated for the drugs. There were no other options. Regardless of the path I took, I learned I would end up at the same place of complete disability where everyone who has MS ends up. The consensus of the medical community was that with or without the drugs, multiple sclerosis was incurable. I was doomed to watching my body shut down bit by bit, and there was almost nothing I could do to change that. Unless I pulled myself out of bed and started looking for solutions to save myself. I've never been one to blindly accept the status quo. My husband will freely volunteer that I may be someone who doesn't believe certain rules apply to me. I feel a bit sheepish to admit it, but he's right. Though I always wear a seatbelt in a car, a helmet on the ski hill, and never miss an opportunity to vote, I must confess to having a bit of a rebellious streak. I've been known to beg forgiveness afterwards rather than ask for permission beforehand, and lean toward mutiny when ordered to perform steps I perceive as extraneous when I can see valid shortcuts or workarounds to achieve the same goal. When told something I want is unrealistic or out of reach, I interpret it to mean I just need to figure out a more creative solution and hang on long enough until I can fashion an outcome closer to my original vision. Receiving a diagnosis after just 30 years of life of a chronic autoimmune condition that came with an 80% chance of being in a wheelchair within a decade sparked my stubborn insistence that this statistic wouldn't apply to me. I was driven to reject that prognosis and focus my mind on solving the problem by learning everything I could, synthesizing the information, and exploring new possibilities. After all, this was my problem, and at the end of the day, I would be the one most affected. Figuring out how to protect my future became my mission. I had to pivot to view this diagnosis not as a devastating truth, but rather as the challenge of a mystery that was constantly feeding me new clues to be puzzled over and untangled, connections to be noted and illuminated. My life was literally on the line. There had to be something I could do to change my fate. Indeed, in the more than 25 years since my diagnosis, I have learned that not only is there something I can do to help myself, there is an entire universe of treatments, therapies, and lifestyle changes that can transform a life of pain, discomfort, and dysfunction into one that is strong, active, and engaged. My own health journey has encompassed a multitude of therapies, treatments, lifestyle changes, radical interventions, supplements, and practices implemented at various points over the past 2 decades. I had to unlearn some key habits and behaviors that had brought me to the place where I had tipped over from occasional discomfort into the chronic zone of autoimmunity. I didn't get here overnight, and my recovery journey wouldn't happen in a day either. The trickiest part would be figuring out what to do to make myself better while not getting worse. Today, I'm still dancing through my 50s with no signs of disability and no intention of slowing down. I like to say, I'm still in heels, not on wheels. What has worked for me could work for you too. Even if your diagnosis is not multiple sclerosis or another autoimmune condition, even if you have multiple diagnoses, or even if you are still searching for a specific medical diagnosis, these same approaches could help you too. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or another autoimmune condition that feels like a life sentence of the worst kind, then I hope this podcast is on your must-listen list. While I don't pretend to have all the answers, nor do I hold out any promise of a cure per se, I can guarantee that you will think differently about all chronic conditions after listening. There does not yet exist a wondrous pill, tonic, or injection that will magically cure all the symptoms of long-term inflammation. I'm talking about the near constant pain, discomfort, and dysfunction that are the signs of autoimmunity. If there were, you would be sure to hear about it from the more than 125 million Americans living with chronic conditions. Worldwide, 3 of 5 people die due to chronic illnesses like respiratory diseases, heart disorders, obesity, and diabetes. So many of us are suffering without relief. Something has to change. We need a different approach. I believe it is imperative for each of us to be proactive and to take charge of our own personal well-being. That's right. I am convinced we each have the power to claim our own health, regardless of almost any kind of life-shattering diagnosis. Your body, your health, and indeed your future are often all within your control. But it is up to you to decide to take action to save yourself. No one can do it for you. It's past time to stop dreaming that long-term salvation will arrive in an easy form of a pill, injection, or surgery, and to step up and to save yourself. Here's the plain truth. To turn a life sentence into a life solution requires targeted anti-inflammatory lifestyle choices. This kind of radical turnaround requires you to direct and to participate in your own healing journey. My theories regarding autoimmunity, and indeed almost all chronic symptoms of pain, discomfort, or dysfunction, come from decades of intensive research, professional training, and first-person experiences. While I've been living with and learning about multiple sclerosis for more than 25 years, I also have a doctorate in traditional naturopathy and certifications as a natural health professional, nutritional consultant, and LEAP dietary therapist, among others. Additionally, I was certified by the American Naturopathic Medical Association after passing their board exams in 2014. Since 2011, hundreds of people have come through my virtual clinic, the Inflammation Academy, and their improvements have validated my theories and natural approaches to managing inflammation and autoimmunity. I am not the only one who believes there are health solutions that exist for each of us if we only decide to take action to save ourselves. Throughout this podcast, I will introduce other colleagues who are committed to redefining multiple sclerosis and autoimmunity with innovative, out-of-the-mainstream solutions. The goal is to empower those of us living with autoimmunity to reclaim control over our physical and mental selves. I consider them to be fellow ambassadors in the collective effort to redefine autoimmunity from a life sentence to a life solution. And I include their stories in this podcast and their opinions to show I am not alone in embracing a new paradigm for addressing autoimmunity and other chronic conditions. This is a growing movement. I've put some of the references and resources that will be used in this podcast series onto my website at elizabethyarnell.com/resources. My goal with this podcast is to encourage MS patients and others suffering from chronic inflammation and autoimmunity to recognize that 1. Symptoms are due to inflammation. 2. Inflammation requires an external trigger. And 3. Identifying and then avoiding the triggers behind your symptoms is possible. Without triggers, there is nothing to incite inflammation. Without inflammation, there aren't any symptoms. If you don't have symptoms, are you still sick? Ultimately, I profoundly believe that knowing about our individual triggers gives us hypersensitive people the essential information for designing and implementing a personal life solution. In other words, I advocate for adopting an educated, anti-inflammatory lifestyle tailored toward successful disease management rather than passively awaiting a magical cure without taking targeted, proactive steps to help yourself. The coming episodes are presented in an intentional order to develop a deep understanding of this radically different perspective on health. Therefore, I encourage you to listen to the episodes sequentially in the order they are published. In the next episode, we will talk more about inflammation and what to do if you have been told you are suffering from it. Tune in then.
And that's another case filed on the Inflammation Investigator. Remember, every symptom is your body's way of communicating. We just need to learn the language. If today's episode sparked something for you, I want to hear about it. Share your own investigation discoveries with me on social media at Elizabeth Yarnell, or find me at elizabethyarnell.com. Your experience could be exactly what another listener needs to hear. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And here's the thing about investigations. They work best when you're not going it alone. If this podcast is helping you uncover the answers you've been searching for, please like, rate, subscribe, and review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. As a new podcast, these actions mean more than you know. Want to dive deeper into your own inflammation investigation? Head over to inflammationinvestigator.com, where you can take my free inflammation quiz to uncover which hidden triggers might be affecting your health. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Yarnell, your inflammation investigator, reminding you that the solutions to your health issues are out there. Let's find them together.